Planning a fishing trip shouldn't feel like a full-time job. With fishingbooker.com, you can find and book the perfect fishing trip within minutes. Fishingbooker.com connects you with trusted fishing captains around the world. Booking is fast, easy, and secure, with access to verified customer reviews, loyalty rewards, and around-the-clock customer support. Everything you need to book with confidence is in one place. So head to fishingbooker.com and start planning your next fishing adventure today.
No one goes to Hank's for his spreadsheets. They go for a darn good pizza. Lately, though, the shop's been quiet, so Hank decides to bring back the $1 slice. He asks Copilot in Microsoft Excel to look at his sales and costs and help him see if he can afford it. Copilot shows Hank where the money's going and which little extras make the dollar slice work. Now Hank has a line out the door. Hank makes the pizza, Copilot handles the spreadsheets. Learn more at m365copilot.com/work.
Have you ever wondered where if people, you hear about preppers that say, well, I have guns, so you can stock all the food and all the everything you want, but I'm just going to come take it from you. I just watch who's prepping and I just make sure I'm going to go steal their stuff, right? Yeah. That's always the plan, right? You always hear that guy. You have that guy in your neighborhood, Kevin?
Yeah, no, and that guy's at every gun show. That guy's at every prepper meeting. That guy's always around. And that's his big plan. He ain't going to do nothing until, things go wrong, and then he's just going to kill all his neighbors.
Kill all his neighbors. Good to have friends like that, right? Yeah, that's their plan.
And honestly, it's not really a solid plan. But no. That doesn't mean people aren't going to do it.
Right. It is some people's plans. So that's one of the things. Now, a mutual assistance group is a great idea and is absolutely a good, honorable, realistic, practical way to have your guys survive the apocalypse. And that's what you want. We're not really talking about mutual assistance groups in this episode. This is more the brutality and you hear like clans or, gangs forming after, people want to be warlords in their region. They want to control, and it always gets bad. And the people who survive in an environment like that, well, one, it's going to take something on your part because brutality is a hard thing to overcome. That's like you dealing with a serial killer, you're right. Just like, it's unexpected, it's unpredictable, and it's ruthless. You always, the guy who's going to stick his thumb in your eye in a fight, you don't want to fight that guy because it's not going to be fun. The guy who, you always watch, like, I'd watch The Sopranos, and there was an episode, I think, like Chrissy's sitting around with a bunch of union guys and they're like construction or something, and they're sitting under a bridge and they're all talking and whatever. And the guy says something stupid about somebody's wife or something like that. And he's like, oh, it's good. Don't worry about it. I know we're just joking around here. Oh, okay. And then a second later, the beer bottle crashed across his face. You don't see that coming. Right. And that's the thing with the level of brutality. You don't see it coming because it's so far out of our norm and our reality. Mm-hmm. But we're going to talk about where these people would hide, what these people, who are these people, what kind of, stuff they're going to have, how they're going to do it, how they're going to convince people to stay with them until they're big enough to force people to stay with them, or, it becomes the only option. There are some places where, might makes right, and it's not a good thing, and it's not a good way to be. So morally, absolutely, it's going to be a bad thing. And I hate to say, the people who rise to power like this are going to be people who are willing to take advantage right away. Right. You could maybe take over like a local armory. Usually they're staffed by probably like 10 people or something. at any given time, like in a normal day, right? When some event isn't going on, something, but you might be able to run in and kind of shake things up and catch people off guard in the first 6 hours of something going bad.
Yeah.
But if you wait a week, you wait even 2 days, all of a sudden they're going to be ready to protect this place. And you're not just rolling in without something serious. So that's something to think about. Kevin, has this ever happened before? Do we have examples in history?
Well, I mean, that was a big thing during the Great Depression, right? Bonnie and Clyde, they outgunned all the police officers because they raided an armory, and they all had Browning automatic rifles.
There you go.
BAR.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that'll do it. That'll give you a leg up,
Right. And pistols got or the police have a 6-gun, a six barrel revolver, and it's not really you can't compete with an automatic machine gun.
The police didn't all have full auto machine guns like they do today, Kevin.
Right. That's right. They weren't the military back then. Now the police are the military.
Now they are the SWAT teams, and apparently justified is what they would tell you, because obviously you might have somebody like Bonnie and Clyde show up.
Right. Right. So, so there are been a lot of examples of this sort of stuff. When things go bad, there's always somebody that, is vicious enough and nasty enough and can survive long enough to, to start running things. And that's kind of what happened in Haiti. Gangs control 85% of Port-au-Prince, the capital of Haiti. And the main gang that's in control is the Revolutionary Forces of the G9 family and allies. Okay. It's a federation of 12 armed groups led by a former police officer named Jimmy Barbecue Sherazier.
So he's really good at barbecue, is what you're saying. Like he used to be the go-to guy for parties at the police,
Yeah, well, he actually he says he got his name because his mother used to sell fried chicken on the street.
Okay.
And he says that's where he got his name.
Chicken.
Yeah.
Who doesn't, really?
Everybody else says, though, he got that name because he likes to light people on fire. So he was involved. He says he wasn't, but he was involved in multiple massacres, 9 people here, 8 people over here. And basically now controls the entire city. And if you want to eat, you got to go to Jimmy Barbecue.
I mean, that's what it always was, though. His mom started out with the chicken, and now he wants to control the chicken. It's like a chicken empire. I see,
right.
Where they're going with this. I mean, that's how I imagine that show, Breaking Bad, right? They got the chicken franchise, and he's selling the meth. Maybe it's really just because he really loved chicken, wanted a lot of chicken places, and it's hard to keep them in business. Small business is not easy, Kevin.
No, especially restaurants. They go out
that a little bit, right? Mm-hmm. You're in a tough neighborhood or something. You got to have a little something, a little meth kickback,
Yeah, I think there's a chicken place, in the city that I live near that chicken is addictive, man. I wouldn't be shocked if there's some meth in that,
Yeah,
Kennedy Fried Chicken. It's KFC. It's just not really Kentucky. It's different.
Kentucky. All right. So I guess let's talk about what kind of guys, like who are going to be the ones that can successfully rise to power. Now, again, you're definitely going to have psychos who just with brutality are going to end up killing a bunch of people and kind of, can kind of dominate something. But again, your average good guy, there's a lot of guys in a lot of states that have guns all the time. Mm-hmm. Now there's other states like New York where good people aren't allowed to have guns.
Right.
It's only criminals. We like to keep it that way.
Yeah, and the police. But I mean, in New York, that's kind of like the same thing.
Kevin? Yeah, exactly. now you're seeing what I'm putting.
If you want to buy steroids in my area, you have to go to the police department to get them.
Yeah, you just knock on the door. I don't know. So yeah, let's talk about who these guys are and what they do. So it's gonna be like former law enforcement. You just gave an example of, the type of people. It could be like the SWAT team, right? We
Mhm.
all saw the Shield, right? These guys, were the kind of shady characters. Organized crime, right? You have established gangs that have been, warlords and that kind of thing.
Mhm.
Uh, there's a lot of bad people, Kevin.
Yeah, that's right. And I
You
think a lot of these gangs that are lower level, um, you know, and organized crime too, they start as a way to like help their community,
Yeah,
protect their neighborhood, the grandma down the street, make sure she's got her bills paid and things like that. And they escalate, and they escalate and get worse. And they may see themselves as like helping everybody, helping their neighborhood in an emergency. And if you're not the one of the people that are helping in the neighborhood, you might get lit on fire.
Kevin, because those people are part of the problem. They're not
Hmm.
part of the solution,
Right.
right?
You need to share your resources. That's, there, and they'll make you do that.
Yeah, no, exactly. So I do have kind of a list, right? Some guys here. Now you have like corrupt breakaway law enforcement, right? They have an existing authority mindset. You probably didn't know this, but a lot of cops like to kind of be in control. You probably never saw that happen or play out. Um, they also, I think, have a imagined authority, presumed, they should be in charge. They're cops, right? That
Hmm.
makes sense. Former military. Now, these guys, they know what they're doing. Now, you also have like private security contractors, the guys who are like the hardcores, the
Right.
the former SEALs, the tough guys. All the ones I know, we're all just have. I mean, I wasn't one of the cool tough guys. I'm just saying we all just have bad knees. I'm just thinking veterans in general, bad backs, bad knees.
Yeah.
Just everything's been kind of hit hard pretty early on.
Yeah. My
Um,
shoulder doesn't move like that anymore.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It's like, oh yeah, tough guy. And it just, yeah, now I like to sit in a chair, maybe a cigar and a beer,
I'm
that
not
kind of thing.
sleeping. I'm just resting my eyes.
Right, exactly. There was that show Titus, and he one of his jokes. He's like, "Yeah, I thought I could beat my dad. All he does is sit around and smoke cigars or cigarettes and drink beer." And I was like, "Yeah, I got him." And he's like, "Turns out he was just resting." You end up, you beat some ass, but. And that's the thing. There is some brutality. They also, former military, they understand logistics. They understand, especially guys like Rangers and
Hmm.
things like that, who spent time looking how to set up and organize groups, how to train groups, how to control a region. Those guys are going to be amazing at this kind of, thing if they have that bad guy mindset. Now, obviously, every military person is a good person. So, as a veteran myself, Kevin, I'm sure you can attest, you've never met a bad military member.
I've never met anybody that got drunk and
Right.
punched out a random person at a bar.
And they're always have a strict adherence to the rules.
Mhm.
Another thing would be like organized crime, that kind of stuff. Guys like that, they already operate outside the law, so this isn't going to be, something new to them. They have a built-in hierarchy, used to enforcement, revenue models, comfortable with violence and intimidation. However, they kind of usually are in the mindset of short-term thinking. I know, you might say, well, MS-13's like taking over the whole country. That's not short term. All right, I
Mhm.
hear you. But I'm just saying in general, right?
Right.
Um, outlaw clubs like a biker gang, Kevin, that kind of thing.
They don't
Or just in line with biker gangs, survivalist militia types, practically the same thing.
practically the same thing. Yeah. Now, I think that one of the things that I think is interesting about the MS-13
Yeah.
is they actually started as a neighborhood watch to help they're underprivileged community. And now they're one of the most violent, groups in the United States today.
Exactly.
The Hells Angels and other motorcycle clubs, those guys are, they live outside of the law, and that's true. And the police don't really go after those guys anymore. It's too hard to get, in with those gangs, and they're running guns. It's not the type of people that, that play around. And so a lot of these groups are, living outside of the law. And when the law collapses, they're going to be the ones that are in charge.
Like I said, it's that initial quick grab of resources, right? Like, think about when you're going down the street and an EMP happens and your car dies. You look at your cell phone, you have several things, a laptop that you had charged up on the back seat, you power that up, or you try to, and it's not working. And you see every vehicle just died. You see every light going out. Is your first thought, Kevin, you're a seasoned prepper, are you going to immediately be like, oh, I need to get into that 7-Eleven and just grab everything and run out?
Right. I'm gonna smash that old lady clerk that's working the counter and grab all the hot dogs, Slurpees, everything's coming home with me.
So some people, you have that, like, I'm a thug, I'm going to just take advantage of any opportunity. However, I imagine a lot of them don't have the forethought of, like, being aware, hey, this is an EMP. This is going to be a long-term, bigger thing. I assume they're not in this game, that it's not that general knowledge, but maybe it is. And because they also worry about, hey, I don't want to go to jail. I don't want to get shot. But I don't think it's going to take that long either for some people to, you get one or two to test the boundaries, and then other people start following in. And
I remember when I was I was a young man. I lived in San Diego in an apartment complex, and the power went out. And I was sitting on the steps with my neighbor bullshitting, and we saw this guy walk past, and the neighbor jumped up, said, "Hey, who are you? And what are you doing here?" And fucking ran and chased him off. And I was like, "What the hell is going on?" He said, "People do that, man. The power goes out, and they start looking around houses, looking for shit to rob immediately. People that are opportunists like that will see chaos as a advantage, something to be taken advantage of."
Absolutely. And they're going to get an immediate foothold, but then can they hold it and maintain it? And let's kind of, go down that road a little bit. What type of things, I was going to say, other things on my thing were on my list were like skilled trades, like an organization or group where just people are used to working together and have a structure. But again, the guy who's good at being a manager at the factory might not be the guy who's best in charge of your tactical command, so that is something to, think about. But there is that whole corporate thing. Religious groups are good at having a bunch of people together, but the odds that they're all tactical and ready to go, that's another story. So let's, how do you take control, right? What's going to make a gang actually survive and thrive is going to be how they control things. So they're going to want to control like choke points, like highways, bridges, fuel depot, right? So I was trying to kind of brainstorm what kind of like building would they take over? Everybody in their mind always wants to go take over the Walmart because it's got the resources. I'm going to talk about that in a minute, but maybe the fuel depot is the place to go, right? If you have an endless supply, I know where Kevin lives. There's a giant tank down on the river where, one, you can be right on the river, and two, you can have, it's got to be like, I don't know, like 10,000 gallons or more. It's got to be more than that.
100,000 gallons at least.
Yeah, it's crazy. And you're kind of limitless control. You control something like that. But that's, that's where you take charge. So even just taking over a gas station, if you nipped it in the bud, you'd have a lot of gas there. However, usually in a crisis, first thing people do is go get gas. And I imagine they'd already be kind of depleted or whatever at the local,
right, at the local level
gas station store, not the, not the big center. Water, having access to clean water is going to be a huge resource. And if you can control it and say, hey, I have clean water, but you're going to have to trade me something, bring me something good, and you can get some water that's clean and ready to go. Obviously, medical resources, you take over that CVS, although I use Walgreens and they never seem to have anything in stock when I need it.
Yeah.
So I don't really know if they actually have what you need, but, and they always say like the pharmacies are the first thing, then the vets and the things like that, because they have,
right. They have similar drugs,
but it's an afterthought, that people think of the vet and the local, animal thing. Controlling farms and food production. To me, that's not going to be the first thing people go to, but that's something long-term logistically they'd want to think about. Obviously, warehouses and distribution centers. I didn't watch it, but I know The Walking Dead, I think they had some kind of big distribution system.
Yeah, thing. I think there's a lot of them. And honestly, truck drivers know most of those areas. I would want to have a friend that was a truck driver that knew where the distribution centers are. And I know where one is, that only because it's by my house, I know, I see it, but there's a lot that are, kind of off the road and set back a little bit and not necessarily easily identifiable. And, some of these guys, and a lot of these truck drivers are, they're coordinating with each other. They're talking to each other, letting each other know where the speed traps are,
Right.
So that might be a group that, would have access to resources and have a bit of a coordination.
Right. So let's go down that road for a minute. Like, what type of places would be the best? So one comes to mind is industrial sites, right? So factories, like I said, distribution centers, shipping hubs, they usually have fencing, controlled entry points, heavy equipment like forklifts and stuff like that. I know the factory I work at any given time, you could probably have 20 or 30 completely charged up fork trucks available to you. And if you're reasonable with your efforts, a fully charged fork truck, you're getting a full day of moving stuff out of each one, a very full day. But again,
and if I remember correctly, there was an A-Team episode where B.A. Baracus welded steel plate to a forklift and they defeated the enemies with machine guns because they had the armor-plated forklift. So just throwing it out there.
And you got some weight, some pushing force. You got some good stuff there. All right. Another one that people wouldn't maybe think of firsthand, but that would be great, would be like shipping ports or like a container depot or train yard. So you have big stockpiles, right? With the containers, unknown goods. You don't know what you get, but it's like playing the lottery, right?
Right.
Built-in choke points and access control. Transportation, maybe depending on the event that happens, right? How bad it is. But that's more of a economic control center, because you could have all these resources right there. That's what I always wonder about the distribution centers. Kind of know what it is. Like, I know there's a big Pepsi distribution center not that far away from Kevin, and there's some other ones, but some might be like Gap furniture, Gap clothes and furniture and whatever. You don't know unless, like Kevin said, the truckers and stuff have the inside scoop, what's going where. So understand what that distribution center is, but also a big building's kind of cool. The next thing, how about schools and like college campuses? some of the negatives are going to be all the entrances usually into these buildings. So it might be tough to fortify, but if you have the right crew, and a lot of it is like all windows and all glass doors.
Yeah, but they've been planning for school shootings for so many years now that probably easy to lock everything down.
Yeah, there you go. So it's kind of to your advantage because the kids are going to go home, right? When there's an emergency. I mean, at least by the end of the day.
Right,
and then
right.
That's your chance to move in. You don't want to be babysitting a bunch of kids. That's not really a fun thing, I would say.
No.
All right, I'm in charge, kids. It's not.
Everyone sit down, quiet down. No, they're not going to listen to you anyway.
And they have a lot of sass. Kids talk back. It's not a good thing. Multiple buildings. There is one of the things people don't think about is usually schools have a cafeteria and they have a stockpile of food for all these kids. So that is something to think about. Like usually the big 50-pound bags of flour, stuff like that they can do volume. So that could be a resource. Now, again, how long, if you have you build yourself a little army of 20 guys, how long is a couple of 50-pound bags of flour going to really go? Not that far. That's not going to be your end all, but it's a nice bonus, right? It's a happy. There's also like office complexes, like tech campuses, business parks, that kind of thing. So a lot of times they have parking garages, which are kind of cool. It's defensive. You can kind of be protected. If you still had power, they usually have surveillance, that kind of stuff. Usually, again, back to the cafeteria. Some have backup generators. National Guard, right? We talked about or police training facilities.
Right.
These are big targets. Decommissioned bases might be something to think about. Because even if, like, say the Army packs up and goes out of there because they're trying to consolidate at bigger bases, these buildings are still designed to be defensive, right? They're set up. They have strategic. They're pretty cool. Another one people think about is hospitals. Hospitals, yeah, you have the medical supplies I talked about. You have the power backup, but you also have a lot of sick, dead people. And I imagine they didn't all get out of there right away.
Right,
To
right.
me, it just sounds like a mess.
Yeah.
That doesn't.
And there's
sound
different
like
levels
anywhere I'd want to go
of hospitals. That my local hospital here in town it's really, you just go there to die. You know what I mean? Like they don't cure anybody. You gotta go. You gotta go.
What you're saying?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So it's not like you really want to be taking care of a bunch of but I mean, if you're an asshole, you don't really have to take care of them. Just roll them out the window.
Kevin, that sounds horrible. Campgrounds, something like that, especially more remote. Usually that unsuspecting Boy Scout camp, something like that. But again, you have a big perimeter that it's going to be tough. I feel like you'd have to have some numbers to really defend a campground or a camp, something like that. I mean, how cool would it be if there was a fence around it? But good luck finding that, construction sites, quarries. Imagine if you had a couple of front end loaders and maybe a dump truck. And usually places like that have fuel tanks on site. Again, you're not going to have limitless, but I bet you could run that equipment to set up all your, gravel piles and things like that. I bet you'd be able to do that. No problem. You're probably not driving to the grocery store and back in the loader a couple times, but you could probably work some things out. So there's some cool, defensive advantages that, are kind of cool there. But again, you want to think of location. You do want to think about what you can control, that kind of stuff. So hopefully these tactics will give you some kind of idea what people are thinking. What I mentioned the Walmart, and I think it's not really the go-to that you're thinking of. One, I think you are going to have a manager and a couple of people who are going to be like, hey, we're not letting you in here who are going to give you a little resistance. 2, you're thinking, well, I bet that manager doesn't have a gun. It's probably against Walmart policy, but they have a gun section, right?
Right.
They do actually have guns and ammo.
Yeah.
To maybe
and I feel like you might not be the only person heading to Walmart.
That's
at
my
the end of
next
the world.
point. Yeah, exactly. I considered stadiums, but I feel like you'd need a huge group. You know what I'm saying? They're not, they're bigger than you think. And to be able to control that, that's a lot of perimeter to try and protect and, keep a hold of. So maybe not the go-to, but something to think about. Now, all right, how is this guy going to build an army is kind of my next thought. So one, if you go in and you take over some resources, right? You're like, hey, I control the water. Hey, I control the fuel. Well, I bet you could find 10 tactical guys if you had the fuel depot who, as long as they didn't want to just take it from you, you kind of, especially if it's a group, your gun club or whatever, and you go take over this fuel depot, and obviously if the power comes back on and things go back to normal, you tell the police you were just securing it for them.
Right.
You were just making it safe. The town had the resources. You knew this was a vital infrastructure. You thought this was a terrorist attack, and you were looking to, help out.
Yeah, and then the police that show up are the Banditos, which is a huge gang in California of police officers. So, who knows?
That's the thing. We need it for us. I have the kid at home who, has MS or something, and I need resources that I can be, I have to have access to the hospital stuff and you get the idea. Old malls. That's another thing people could think about. Now how cool would it be if that mall was actually stocked and
which isn't the case anymore
back in the day. But now you just have what is it? Spencer's Gifts or something?
They're out of business too.
They're out of business. Okay.
It's nothing.
I haven't even seen a mall in forever. But if they existed, that'd be one more thing. But so how do you get people to join? So you can offer the resources. Hey, I have water. Come trade, and we have cool stuff. Oh, you have a special skill. Maybe you'd like to join us. Things sound good. But as things go on, it's kind of like by force. Think of, who the best example, if you were serious about you wanted to be the bad guy raider, you might want to study Genghis Khan. You might want to go back. We did an episode on Genghis Khan and his tactics. He basically would roll in with such intense force that everybody just we surrender, we good. And he's like, join us or die. And they were all like, join you sounds pretty good. Now, obviously, you have to have a big enough force that makes sense. And you got to kind of weed out of how do you know they're not going to say, yeah, I'm on your team, and then wait till you go to sleep and then go knife you in the back. That's where the lessons from the Stasi, the Germans, and everybody, you just need snitches everywhere. Lots of stitches. They're the key to surviving long term. Now, again, you're like, Chuck, that sounds horrible. That's absolutely the worst world that I would ever want to be in. And that's part of why, when you deal with dirtbags, you end up with dirtbags. Like somebody who will do the brutal, cruel things, that guy is not exactly somebody you want to be your friend.
Right.
And that's where the version of a mutual assistance group, somebody who, actually plans and stores stuff. You guys get together. Maybe you have the hunting property that you have. Maybe you're all same, members of a hunting lodge or a shooting range. I know out by Kevin, those things are kind of popular because, there's nowhere else to do it. Whereas in the Southland, it's kind of like, why would we have a gun club? Because my backyard is a gun club.
Right.
Everybody, we do what we want. And you're like, oh, well, what about the cities in the South? Yeah, have you seen Rocky Mountain? It's like a gun club down there. They go down and they don't call it Murder Mount for nothing. That's all I'm saying. But that's the idea. These people are not going to be the people you want to align yourself with. However, all that said, there is some question of how do you look at the morality of, I know that store is going to be looted. Do I go get mine to protect my family and, get my fair share and go take it? That's where it always kind of comes where what's the right answer? But the answer is you stockpile stuff and you have it and you find a way to protect it for yourself beforehand, so you're not in a desperate emergency. The honest answer is you're not going to be able to get enough good stuff running in and grabbing the 7-Eleven, emptying out the candy bars or whatever, that you couldn't really do a lot better with $200 at Sam's Club prior to buying big bags of rice and flour. You could feed as many bellies off the one as you can off of the other. Now, I know it seems like you could go to, well, yeah, but Chuck, I'm not going to 7-Eleven. I'm going to the grocery store. And yeah, but what can you carry away? Kevin talked me into reading a novel the other day that they basically kept running into the grocery store and they hid little stash piles all around. So that way they didn't have to take the stuff home. Now, I feel like people would be watching you and just go dig it up as you're burying it. Like, all right, he just brought out stuff. He went into the danger and now I can walk away and take more. And this guy buried it in the snow to keep it hidden. Cool. But I feel like people are going to notice you running in and out of the store.
Right.
Is all I'm saying. So keep that in mind.
Yeah. And there's a thin line between looting and scavenging. You know what I mean? Is it really looting if you're, grabbing food for your family and there's nobody around? Yeah, it's still looting, but not as much as stealing a bunch of TVs that, But you see these things in I remember was it Hurricane Katrine down in New Orleans? Yeah. And they had different pictures in different newspapers of the same people in the same place. And one headline says people looting, and one headline says people scavenging water to drink, And, if it's survival, you should take that water, But, there's a thin line there.
Yep. No, exactly. Well, the thing is, I've actually had this discussion with my kids, and it wasn't really about the apocalypse and surviving like that, but a discussion of decide your morality. Decide what's right and wrong now. And then anytime something changes in the world and you're ready to change your opinion, it's okay to change your mind, right? Mm-hmm. But make sure you understand why that, but decide what you're willing to do, beforehand, and know your moral code and then go from there. But I also know by planning ahead, by being the prepper guy, you can actually avoid having to make these hard decisions. You don't have to go put your life in danger going to the grocery store when people are shooting each other. You could go to the grocery store today and bring that stuff home, put it away securely. And then when bad things come, you'd be like, oh, I'm good. I don't need to go out. We always in our mind, though, in the prepper novels, and I feel like reality, we would be like, well, yeah, but I could go get a little bit more. Even if I can go out and buy 5 more things. I don't think we're really thinking, I can go loot some stuff. I think we're thinking, if I went and bought, whatever's on the shelf, it might be better. Or it always seems like, my gas cans are empty now when things go bad,
Right.
Like that kind of stuff. Like crap. It's right. It caught me at the one bad time. But there's always something more we could be doing. But that's why it's so important to like take an inventory as a prepper to kind of, check your supplies, make sure the mice aren't getting in, make sure things are working and, operating the way you should. So that way you'll be able to, to enjoy life a little bit longer. Like you get an extra 2 days before your kids are hungry because you're a prepper, that kind of thing. Maybe go to prepper camp. I am told if they're going to ask you how you heard about prepper camp, if you put Chuck Yeager as where you heard about it, when you go to buy your tickets, I think I get like $20 or something. So it'll be like a little,
there's no benefit for you, but I get something out of it.
So maybe think about that one and be like, Chuck Yeager, how do I remember that name? Oh, he's that awesome guy who broke the sound barrier. Put that one in. And that'll help you out. So anyway, maybe that'll help. But that's what I got. Kevin, are you going to be a warlord, or are you just going to like hunker down, or are you just going to head off to the woods, man? Maybe you're going to be the stealth.
I'm going to go to the woods. I'm going to start a little hippie commune there. It's going to turn into a cult. I'm going to be sleeping with everybody's wives.
Smart. Kevin, I like your play.
It's long-term planning.
All right. I like it. So with that, I appreciate you guys. Stay safe, and we'll talk to you guys next week.